Okay, so when we talk about Washington State SEL standards, you kind of see your hierarchy over there on the right-hand side. From broadest to most specific, we go standard, benchmark, indicator. And the design of these, when they were going through developing these, it was really supposed to be almost a blueprint of what we as educators are looking for when we're describing the social emotional development for our students. So getting down to those indicators that are grade band specific. And that is really what we wanted to focus on when we're talking about standards alignment with our financial education standards. And I think one thing about social emotional learning that I find fascinating and fantastic is that it's starting to give, like we said, equitable access to explicit instruction in things that we kind of all just were supposed to pick up. We kind of assumed everyone would pick it up when we were kids, right? It was never explicitly instructed or given instructional time in a classroom setting. And I think that applies to the financial education world as well. So how many times in our adult lives have we said, oh, I wish they taught us this in school. Why didn't they teach us this in school? And I think that can apply to both social emotional development and financial education. So we're going to pop back to our Mentimeter now, and we're going to talk a little bit about things that we had wished we learned in school. I would love for you to show me how you agree or disagree on this this ranking system here. So if we talk about skills like comparison shopping, do you disagree or agree? Do you wish you had learned that in school? Credit scores, job interview skills, buying stocks, car insurance, or cost benefit decision making. Let's see, you can go ahead and rate those. I'm going to do it as well. Oh, we got scores starting to come through already. I love this. So please continue to participate using the Menti. Hit submit when you're done. It's all completely anonymous and it's not for a grade. So looking at this, we can see cost benefit decision making, car insurance, credit scores. These are all things we're at 4 or above. We can say, why didn't someone introduce us to these concepts when we were younger? And all 6 of these statements actually connect to our financial education standards. So within Washington State, we have 6 core competencies. And our vocabulary is slightly different. You'll see that, again, I have that little hierarchy over on the right-hand side. We go from competency, standard, and then to the more specific benchmark. So I know that can be a little confusing, but bear with me on that part. Our competencies are spending and saving, credit and debt, employment and income, investing, insurance and risk management, and financial decision making. And what I really want to touch on here is that all of these are extremely relevant in the K-5 arena. We have some questions on, is it appropriate to be teaching a kindergartner about risk insurance and risk management? Well, of course, at that age, you're not going to take them through an insurance application, but they can start to recognize that there are specific risks attached to finances, attached to money, and that there's ways that we can avoid those risks. Within financial decision making, we see here, I went ahead and listed off the standards. So getting more specific, these standards apply across K through 12. So you're going to find those in all of our grade level standards. And just like SEL, they're going to be indicative of the behaviors that you see progress across a student's academic career. So what I would love for you to see here, again, I'm trying to make connections to decision making. This is an entire competency for us. We have recognizing responsibilities, evaluating and determining if a resource is reliable or not, using criterion-based financial decisions, applying communication strategies, analyzing requirements. So a lot of these are going to mirror those social emotional skills that we are developing in students. We're just applying them in a different context, a real world context and application. And this is just an example of what our standards look like. Again, we recognize that standards can be overwhelming and that K-5 teachers have a lot on their plates. So what we look at here is really just the opportunities that we can look at cross-curricular opportunities for integrating these concepts in. specifically within social emotional learning, discussing an example of something that could be a need for one person, but not for another. We're talking about self-awareness, social awareness. So lots of discussion opportunities within our standards, and just again noting that decision making with critical thinking is really at the core of almost all financial literacy instruction, and a way to explore social emotional development without focusing exclusively on emotions. We're going to give you sort of that avenue of exploration as well. So when it comes to looking at standards alignment work, we have developed a starting point for educators. So we have developed and have it reviewed and approved by the SEL department or the SEL program in OSPI. So this is our indicator crosswalk. So basically, we took our SEL benchmarks and we drilled down into those indicators. For this K-5 area, I went ahead and combined, went ahead and combined early and late elementary. And we used those indicators as our sentence stem. That was our base. And from there, we added on some success criteria that connected to our financial education benchmarks. So for example, while you're identifying and reflecting on personal accomplishments, you can acknowledge the opportunity cost of the choices that led to that accomplishment. So we're hoping here that this is a great starting point for educators, particularly if you're familiar with SEL and looking to expand into financial education, expand your SEL instruction, or just expand into this area, this topic for the first time. This can be a really great place for you to start. Add from it, take from it, add to it, excuse me, take from it. Again, consider learning if they work for you as learning objectives and success criteria, fantastic. But if you're trying to explore different areas of self-awareness, we're focusing on self-awareness. What are some ways that what are some different areas I can explore into this? How can we, bring something new to the table? This document, this crosswalk might give you those avenues of areas to do that. Okay. Oh, and I just want to note as well, we have a QR code up there in the corner for you. So this is a resource, again, that you will have when you receive the presentation. Are there any questions on this section before we move in? Is there in the chat or on the Menti? You can also put a question anytime you would like. So please feel free to pop those in anywhere and we'll do our best to answer them. All right, so after we look at the standards, now we're kind of going to settle in and talk about different personal finance behaviors and the social emotional components to them. You'll notice as we move through this that we focus heavily on self-awareness, and it's included in every single one of these behaviors. We find that teachers are looking for these skills, ways to develop these skills in our students, particularly coming after COVID. Kids are, have been affected in many different ways by the pandemic, and the need to identify and name their feelings, emotions, so they can start building strategies to respond constructively to them is something that we've heard a need for over and over again. So we really do focus on the social awareness part of it. The self-awareness part of it. But again, if you're an educator who or educators who are hesitant to jump into the social emotional space for any reason. I know I worked with a couple educators who's like, I signed on to teach math, not necessarily talk about feelings, even though we know there's a benefit to them. But personal finance can be a great segue into these same skills in just kind of a different path. So